Greetings. Greetings from, where the heck am I? I'm somewhere out in the middle of Utah, just past through Richfield, Utah, and doing my western adventure here. And it dawned on me because half the time I'm nowhere near internet access in these small towns, and not to mention I'm technically on vacation. When I get a request from people on the internet, either for a video or for consultation, it's probably in my best interest to knock it out while I'm on the road. So I apologize for the audio quality. I'm apologizing specifically to Matt. Well, I think his name is Matt. I got a video request to do this. I think his name is Matt. Wait a minute, what do I care? I'm running a company called Asshole Consulting, and Asshole wouldn't care about the guy's name. He just, make sure he knocks it out, gets the stuff done as quickly as possible. So I figure while I'm driving in the middle of nowhere, Utah, and it's pitch black, so I can't see nothing, I should address Matt's concern and knock this one out and address his concern. Now, I think Matt had a question about Bitcoin, basically my take on it. What is it? Why does it have value? And I think this is I don't know if it's an important topic. I think it's important. But a lot of people out there in the regular world who aren't techno-econo geeks, they don't get it. They're like, well, what? And I think the reason why is that there's a failure on the part of the techno-geek, econo-geek world to explain clearly to non-techno-econo geeks out there what this Bitcoin thing is. And so I'm going to try and translate for the benefit of not just Matt, but everybody else. All right. Now, we're not even going to talk about Bitcoin. Not first. All right. Now, I've outlined it here, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm driving at the same time, and the roads are a little bit curvy here in Utah. But I've outlined it here. I'm going to start you in from the ground up as to what Bitcoin is and currencies and all that, and we're going to build it up. And in the end, hopefully Bitcoin will make a hell of a lot more sense. You'll see why I personally believe that it has value. So I got to consult my... Hang on, where'd the dome light go? There it is. All right, hang on. See, I got my notes right there. All right. Okay, number one. There's no such thing as money. The number one thing, and this will go beyond benefiting you to understanding Bitcoin, but understand economics in general. Money ultimately does not matter. And the reason why is that you cannot eat money. Even if it's gold, you cannot eat money. You cannot survive or sustain yourself off of money. Right? What only matters in economics is stuff. And if you think about it, you're not excited. Let's say you see a $20 bill on the ground. You don't get excited because, oh, it's a piece of paper that has the number 20 written on it. You get excited because now you could go and buy stuff with it. If you think about it, that's all money is used for. It's to buy stuff. Right? So the value of any economy, the GDP, the wealth of nations, the size of the economy, it's not how much money is being printed off. It is how much stuff is being produced. Now, stuff unto itself, that's the only thing that matters. So there's a problem, though, with stuff, and that is, how do you trade stuff? Right? And this begets a whole bunch of problems associated with having an economy that doesn't have money. In other words, you can't exchange things. You can't mete out a certain amount of things. So, like, say I make a car. Well, how am I going to find, someone who wants to trade milk for a car? I might be able to trade, a year's worth or 2 years worth of milk for a car. But what if I just want one bottle? What am I going to do? Store a whole bunch of milk? So you have all these problems that arise with a moneyless or currency-less society. Now, what this means is that when currency develops, let me step back a little bit. Currency resolves this problem of being not able to trade or directly barter, right? What you do is you convert your stuff, you sell your stuff for this medium of exchange called money. And that allows you to convert your stuff, i.e. your labor that went into making whatever stuff or service you provided, into this exchange medium that allows you to go and buy other people's stuff in quantities and amounts that you want or you demand. Okay? Now, what medium of exchange that ends up being depends on the various qualities and traits of different types of currencies. Now, there's been many different currencies throughout the history of humankind. We always think gold and silver, but there's other things like salt, clam shells have been used in the past. Rubies or gems in general, a little bit less so. But if we look at things like silver and gold, the traditional forms of currency, what are the qualities and traits that they have that make them an ideal currency, that make them this great tool by which we can go ahead and exchange, or convert rather, I should say exchange, but rather allows us to convert our production into a exchangeable currency or medium that allows an economy to thrive and grow. Well, you look at gold and silver, they have, and other currencies, salt and all that other stuff, they have several qualities and traits in common. One, they have intrinsic value, all right? Salt you can use this, and what is intrinsic value? Well, intrinsic value means that the currency itself has value, all right? You say, okay, for example, gold could be made into jewelry, silver could be made into jewelry, salt could be used to store things, and so on and so forth. So that, you know, spices is another example of a historical currency. You could use it to spice your food, or it was divisible and you know, meetable to trade and measure against other items. Another important quality or trait of a currency is divisibility. Okay, you can coin out gold, you can coin out silver, you can weigh it, you can measure it. A cow you can't, unless you chop it up into steaks, but the steak has got to be, you know, it's got to be stored and frozen. Salt can be measured, you know, you can just pour out some salt. I don't know, diamonds have carats and so forth and so on. So it can be divided up so to scale to the value or the quantity or the amount of goods that you wanted to buy. This house is going to cost you 20 gold pieces. All right, this you know, flask of grog will cost you 1 silver piece. So it was divisible and therefore scalable to the purchase that you wanted to make. It had to store over time, all right? Gold and silver do not deteriorate. I mean, I'm sure they do with a half-life of millions of years, but if you have an ounce of gold today, 1,000 years from now, you'll still have an ounce of gold, right? So rain, sleet, snow, you know, gold and silver doesn't spoil. Salt even, you know, if water got to it, you could still, you could boil away the water and have the exact same amount of salt. So you have that there. So the value or the store of value of that currency is maintained. Right? Now, there are other characteristics and traits of a good currency, but those main ones right there make different items throughout the world valuable currencies. Now, here's what's key for everybody to understand, and it will parlay into another point later. Isn't it interesting how before different areas of the pre-Columbus, Magellan explored world, different peoples who had never met the other peoples on the planet all kind of knew that gold or silver was valuable. Okay? That, you know, Christopher Columbus comes over, I think it was the Incans or the Mayans or whatever, Cortez. Wow, they have gold. Who would have known? It wasn't, and what this is very important to point out is that it shows you that it isn't Europeans or technology or the Egyptians or the Romans that made gold have value. Gold and silver and other items throughout the world naturally arose as currencies and stores of value because of their qualities and traits. Right? So when you look at it, a currency, again, even gold or silver, technically really doesn't have so much value in itself because it's gold or quote-unquote silver. It has value because these qualities and traits make it a valuable currency. And I hate to use the word currency. A better word is tool. Currency is a tool of exchange. They have no value unto themselves, just like a hammer has no value unto itself. It's what the hammer or the gold and the silver can do that gives them value. All right, now let me consult my notes here again. All right, talked about traits, gold and silver and diamonds across the world. Oh, I'm sorry, one other quality or trait is scarcity. You can't have something that's so, you know, you can make paper or whatever like that. That's another thing. It has to be scarce. So gold, silver, diamonds. Salt was even considered scarce. All right, now, this brings up an interesting point about how currencies evolved throughout the world naturally, and all, wow, they happen to be the same. You like gold, we like gold. The Incans like gold, the Indus Valley like gold, the Chinese like gold, the Asians like, or the Europeans like gold. Everybody likes gold and silver. Excuse me. I gotta reconsult my notes. So this brings up an interesting question. What percentage of the value of a currency like gold or silver is really intrinsic? In other words, let's question this concept of intrinsic value. Everyone says, well, it's gold, it has value. It's silver, it has value. It's diamonds, it has value. Really? What exactly can you do with gold and silver? Now, I know today, like gold, silver, diamonds, they have industrial or commercial applications. Gold and silver could be used in electronics. Diamonds can be used in drilling, but that's post-industrial revolution. Let's go pre-industrial revolution, where these things still had some kind of value. Well, why did they have value? Well, the truth is, I don't really believe, and this is a personal belief of mine, I don't think they had any kind of intrinsic value beyond being able to be made for jewelry. Now, why is that important? Why is that a asterisk or a footnote in my general contention that none of these things had any kind of intrinsic value? Well, with jewelry and gems and diamonds, what could men do back in the olden days? Basically buy sex, and that's the most important thing to men. If you look at the entire history of the world, pretty much everything men have done has been for sex. The entire Western civilization has been built upon having sex, and consequently children, if you want to believe in the legacy philosophy. Now you take that out of it, though, and just let's not worry about sex. Beyond that, beyond jewelry, and look at jewelry. Does jewelry serve a function? No, it doesn't. Only chicks like jewelry. And what do? They compare jewelry. Does it solve cancer? Does it cure AIDS? Does it build a better mousetrap? Hell no. It's just, oh, look, I have a nice little sparkly thing. Yay. My husband has a bigger dick than yours. Or bigger wallet, whatever. That's basically what it boils down to. So I contend, even if you believe that jewelry is unto itself intrinsic value, I say there is no such thing as intrinsic value. I would say the primary value of gold and silver and diamonds and whatever else is that it has the tools or the qualities and traits of currency. That is where it derives the most amount of its value. And I've asked about this before in a post I wrote. I would love to figure out what percentage of gold and silver's value, or any kind of precious metals value, is derived from, is intrinsic, like it has actual intrinsic value, versus its value because it has qualities and traits that make it a currency. So we're looking at whether the percentage of its value that is derived from its intrinsic value, or that is derived from the fact it's a great currency. I would love to see the percentage of total gold and silver that's currently in circulation, including jewelry. What percent of the weight of gold is being used as jewelry versus currency? What percent of the weight of silver is being used as currency or jewelry, or industrial applications as well? And I bet you, I'm not a metallurgist or a metals expert. I would love to hear, like David Morgan might have an opinion on this. I would bet you anywhere from 70 to maybe even 80% of the precious metals is being used as a currency. Right? So my argument, and to help you understand Bitcoin, is that intrinsic value ultimately probably doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It depends on whether it has the qualities and traits of a good currency, and that is scarcity, divisibility, maintains its value, and then also is generally accepted. Now, how does Bitcoin compare in these qualities and traits? Well, it scores pretty damn well in all of these categories. Is it scarce? Yes, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins mined or created throughout the history of the world. Don't ask how they're mined. Don't worry about it. That's beyond this level. If you want to go into that, well, how is a Bitcoin made? It's just made. Imagine I don't mean to be condescending. Just imagine you're a 7-year-old and you ask mommy and daddy, how are babies made? Don't worry about it. Here comes the stork. The stork. It's the Bitcoin stork, okay? That's how there's going to be 21 million Bitcoins. The larger point is that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins, which means it's going to be scarce. And if you really want to think about it, if you want to do a pure exchange rate, think about this. The exchange rate, the official exchange rate between Bitcoins and dollars would literally, you take the total amount of dollars in the world and the total amount of Bitcoins, and you would divide the total number of dollars by the total number of Bitcoins, and you would have the quote-unquote authentic, real, official price of Bitcoin in terms of dollars. And I calculated it one time. It depends what money supply you want to use, M1, M2. And I think the M1 money supply, I think it's like $250,000 per Bitcoin. All right. Now that's taking a very mathematical, literal approach. There's other things involved, like, well, is Bitcoin going to be around? Acceptability. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to make the point of it being scarce. There are trillions of US dollars floating around. There are quintillions of Japanese yen and Korean won floating around. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Okay. Now let us analogize this to something that's very similar. In this case, Bitcoin takes on a role very much like diamonds. And you think about diamonds, there's a finite amount of diamonds on this planet. Some have yet to be mined, I got that. But let's just say you could extract all the diamonds in the world. Okay, that's it, that's all the diamonds there are. The official price of diamonds would be the total number of dollars divided by the total number of carats of diamonds out there. Now, diamonds isn't perfectly analogous, because there's quality, and a larger carat diamond exponentially has a higher value than a 1 carat diamond. All I'm saying is it's the scarcity quality that Bitcoin has. And you could say it has even more perfect scarcity than gold, silver, diamonds, or any other commodity currency out there, because we're constantly mining that stuff. With Bitcoin, no. It's going to be, here it is, 21 million Bitcoins. Store of value. It's crypto. It's digital. It will never go away. It will not erode in value simply because it's digital. About the only way that could happen is you have a nuclear Armageddon and it wipes out the internet, and then Bitcoin cannot be exchanged. Although people have been printing off Bitcoin paper, but again, that's something we're not going to worry about right now. So we had scarcity. We had was it store of value? What are the other? Divisibility. Bitcoin is divisible down to like a million decimal or 8 decimal points, the millionths, I think. So it could be divided a lot. I mean, so it is very divisible. Is it exchangeable? Yes, it is exchangeable. You could go ahead and exchange it over the internet. You could use it with the phone. There are many, many ways to exchange Bitcoin, either for currency or for actual transactions of goods and services. The final frontier, if you want to call it that, is whether it is universally accepted. If I went up to somebody on the street and said, hey, would you like this gold brick? Everyone would say, yes, we would. That cannot necessarily be said about Bitcoin. Right? If someone said, hey, would you like this Bitcoin? People might say, well, yeah, okay, I'll take it. Sure, what the hell, does it cost me nothing? But what we're talking about is more in terms of transaction. Can you actually convert the Bitcoin into the only thing that matters, and that is stuff? Can I go buy a car with Bitcoin? Can I go buy a McDonald's Big Mac with Bitcoin? And the answer is not yet, but there are more and more merchants, more and more people accepting Bitcoin. For example, Matt, who requested this video, he paid in Bitcoin because I personally am going to accept Bitcoin. I believe that Bitcoin does have some kind of intrinsic value. I have a lot of faith in Bitcoin's qualities and traits as a currency that I will take it. I also kind of want to diversify out of dollars, and I think it's a good idea to have a little bit of cryptocurrency anyway. But you see this in the news every day, where more and more merchants, more and more companies are accepting Bitcoin as payment. Now, a lot of that, admittedly, is nothing more than a marketing gimmick to bring attention to that company. And what those companies do is they almost immediately convert it into dollars rather than hold it as Bitcoin. But the whole point is, and here's a perfect example. I went to this seminar one of the speakers there, he's a Bitcoin expert. His entire trip was paid by Bitcoin. He got a taxi cab driver to drive him. He got his flight paid by Bitcoin. He bought food with Bitcoin. It is becoming more generally accepted. And that is going to be the ultimate test, because here's the thing. It has all the other qualities and traits of a currency nailed down. It has perfect scarcity. It is going to store its value well. You cannot, there's not going to be any more Bitcoin made. It cannot be inflated away. There's only going to be 21 million. It cannot decay like a tomato or a bottle of milk. It is exchangeable. It is divisible. So right there you have the key things. The final frontier is going to be whether it is universally accepted. I don't think it even has to get to the universally accepted point. I think you just have to get about 10 to 25% of the economy accepting it as currency, and then have the remainder, 75, 90% of the economy saying, hey, why are they accepting this so much? What's going on? I don't get that. Well, what's this? And then all of a sudden people say, well, if a fourth of the economy is accepting it, then we might as well accept it as well. Now let me consult the notes here again. All right. Yeah, all right, so I covered that. Anyway, Bitcoin, because of its traits, and because it's starting to gain traction, and because of, I would have to say, fear of the U.S., not to mention European and even China, everyone has all this debt. I think that Bitcoin does have some authentic, legitimate, intrinsic value as a currency. I think it's a viable and legitimate currency. What its official price is, what its true market, well, you can't say true market value, what is its exchange rate between the US dollar or other currencies, I don't know. But I do, in my heart of hearts, actually believe that there is something tangible here with Bitcoin. Now, here's the problems, or here are the caveats, okay? Bitcoin by no means is a guarantee. I think last I checked it was trading around $600 a coin. That's not to say that's going to stand forever, and there are reasons why Bitcoin could ultimately fail anyway, right? Bitcoin could be outlawed by all the different governments. Okay, it would take a lot, because it would be Bitcoin. All these governments across the planet would have to outlaw it. And I don't even think it could. The governments could outlaw Bitcoin all it wanted. It would still be an underground currency. All the governments presumably are against heroin, but by gosh, heroin and cocaine, you can use that as a currency in many underground transactions. That doesn't mean that those, it's almost identical to heroin and cocaine in that it still has value. So it'd be made illegal to transact in Bitcoin, but it would still. It would still probably have some kind of value if other people were to accept it, right? So the governments, they could definitely shut it, and that would certainly take a hit on the price of Bitcoin and make things a little bit more difficult, but wouldn't necessarily knock it out. The other thing, what was it? Competing cryptocurrencies. Absolutely. What's to stop Joe Blow from starting Joe Blow coin, and Aaron from starting Aaron coin, and Matt from starting Matt coin? There's absolutely nothing to stop people from doing that. So I think that poses a bigger threat, because the cryptocurrencies are all going to more or less operate the same way, with the same benefits and qualities and traits that other traditional currencies don't have. But they would simply just be adding. You wouldn't discern between Bitcoin and whatever the other cryptocurrency is. You would just say, what's the total cryptocurrencies in circulation of all the different types of cryptocurrencies? So that is another thing where you would have dilution or an effective inflation with Bitcoin. And then the third concern, take a look here. Government crypto. So, hacking. This is where it might pay attention, or it might pay some benefits to listen to a show like Let's Talk Bitcoin, because it is digital, and because it's digital, anything technically could be hacked. I am no computer expert, but what I've gathered from listening to a couple of the topics of Let's Talk Bitcoin, where they bring in the techno geeks and they talk high-end techno stuff, every system is fallible. Every system has flaws or potential flaws. And Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency is the same thing. It potentially could be hacked. People could have their bank accounts wiped out, as it was the case in MTGOX, one of the main exchanges. Not the currency itself. An exchange, there is a difference. But that's just the threat that you have to worry about. But it's the same thing with any kind of fiat currency that we have today. The U.S. dollar is $100 bills are counterfeited by the North Koreans every day. The Chinese make great knockoffs of silver eagles and our Morgan dollars and other forms of silver. The threat to Bitcoin, I could not personally assess it in terms of hackability, but I would imagine it's not as bad or as easy as counterfeiting U.S. dollars, or counterfeiting threatens the U.S. dollar, because it just seems, I don't know, it just seems so much easier to counterfeit U.S. dollars. It just does. So in any case, those things considered, how do you measure those? How do you pit those up against all the qualities and traits and benefits that Bitcoin might have? Truth is, I don't know, because I don't know I can't calculate the threats. There's no way to predict the future. And there's always the case that, if governments all shut it down, one good hacker gets in, yeah, it could completely obliterate Bitcoin. But I would recommend investing in some form of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin being the foremost, simply because it for any other reason, diversifying your investments, diversifying your currency. It's going for like $600, $700 a Bitcoin now, okay? Mathematically, factually, it has that potential to be worth 250,000 US dollars. Think of it as an insurance policy. Is it going to become the next greatest, latest thing? I really don't know. I really, and all the threats that pose it, there's no way I could tell. There's no way anybody could tell. And if someone's telling you something different, they're lying. But based on what I see as an economist and what I understand about the technology and all that, it is probably a superior currency to what we have in terms of fiat. And especially when you consider all the debt and the deficits and the Democrats and the socialists, and not to mention ultimately what it boils down to, the parasitic generation or the parasitic population that votes these people in, it's certainly, well, I can't say that certainly. It looks likely it's more stable and more promising than the U.S. dollar. Or, the Italian lira, or what is it, the euro. I don't think they got the lira anymore. Because it has finiteness. It is set at 21 million units. It cannot just go to the Federal Reserve printing press and print that off to go pay for welfare bums so that they can have their Obama phones. So that is ultimately what I think is driving the legitimacy and value of Bitcoin, is because all the other currencies, all the other fiat currencies just suck, because the people that are backing up those currencies suck. I mean, it's like, do you want to invest in a genius investment by a Japanese inventor and a bunch of econo-techno geeks who came up with this idea, or do you want to bet on the Peggy Josephs of the world and the welfare recipient scum that's taking over Western civilization? But where's your money on? That's what I'd say. So hopefully that helped out. Hopefully we learned something. I apologize, I couldn't give you, it's worth $7,281.73, because it's impossible to say. But it is something that I recommend, kind of think of it like Vegas. Like, take some money you can afford to lose, and maybe buy a couple $1,000 of Bitcoin. It can't hurt. And if you lose $1,000, you know what? At least you could say, hey, I used to own some Bitcoin at one time. All right, that's all we got. Toodles.